Shivaya. So when we switched books, we switched transliterations. The pronunciation is exactly the same as what we've been dealing with for the last however long we've been chanting in the prior book. So actually, if we're working with it afresh, to take the prior book, which we still have, and this, for these mantras in particular, and sit them side by side will be helpful. Also, I'm going to look for, and this is for everyone online as well, transliteration. Transliteration is not a translation because we're speaking Sanskrit, but we're not speaking it, we're not reading it from Devanagari characters. We're not reading it from the original script. We're reading it with Roman or English characters. So, and since it's not pronounced like English, not exactly, then transliteration, and there are a few different schools of transliteration. The same sound, sh, you might see in 3 different ways. And this one is not quite as intuitive, so, but it's more accurate because the accents are proper. There might be 2 ways to transliterate this way. What sounds like sh, it might be sh and sh. So, and they're not exactly the same. And I'm showing my ignorance because I am by no means an expert in Sanskrit. Leela Mai will try to get to do a couple of workshops online with us on reading the transliteration, pronouncing it well. But the prior transliteration that we've been working with spelled it typically SH. That sounds sh. This one will have S. If you look, if you still have the book there, page 166. And I think we can see it 2 different ways, but for sure, okay. 1, 2, 3rd couplet. Chaitanyam Shashvatam Shantam. So this is how that sh sound is being transliterated here. So it's that accent above the S. If you don't see, and then do we have it? Yeah, next line down. Guru Sakshat. The sound is very similar to the English ear. Next line down. Let's take a look. People online as well, if you have this, just for a moment. Just so we don't feel quite as uncomfortable with it next time we come back to it. So, Guru Sakshat, see that word? You see the dot underneath the S. Okay. So both that and the S with the accent above it will sound similar. But when you see an S with no accent, it's pronounced S. No. So that, and then beyond that, and then you can listen. You can use the other book because there's power in the chanting of these. And by the way, we'll come back next Thursday. It's at memory seat. Oh, next Thursday I'm out. Let's take one of these right now and we'll repeat it in English together. The other thing that's here are very good translations. So the other book also has good translations. Difference is the other book was put together over a period of years, so it's a bit of a hodgepodge. Sometimes you'll see different transliterations. Sometimes the translations are very thorough, sometimes not so much. This book was put together by a group over a period of time, same group, so it's consistent all the way through. That's one of the, and then it includes the kirtans from the European devotees and Asian devotees, bless you. Also still Sanskrit, but that weren't commonly chanted here in North America. So this is a compilation also. Okay, if we take the on Shanti Mantras, page 164. we can repeat it first in English and then repeat it first in Sanskrit, the way we normally chant it, and then we can read the English translation together. It's like this. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It's actually the first mantra that I learned, first of the Shanti mantras, from Swami Ramaswarupananda, who will always chant it at the beginning of any teaching, any Bhagavad Gita, anything like that. We'll see why. We can read the English. Om. Let's do it together. Om. May that protect us both, teacher and disciple. May that cause both to enjoy the bliss of liberation. May we both exert to find out the true meaning of the scriptures. May our learning be brilliant. May we never hate each other. Om, peace, peace, peace. So it's helpful, and Brett and Umadevi as well. It is helpful to know the meaning of the mantras that we're chanting. It's also more powerful to chant them in Sanskrit, but to know the meaning and to chant them in Sanskrit is perfect.
On page 5, there's a guide of Sanskrit pronunciation.
Ah, thank you. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, and number 8 explains about that S.
Perfect. There we go, thank you. So that's for everyone online as well.
Yes.
Sanskrit alphabet, which we're not using here on page 4, but then the pronunciation on page 5. And I'm sure Gopal Chaitanya has noted this as well, because he knows this book backwards and forwards. Okay. So let's pick up Geeta. So these books are a great gift. Everything we're given. Great gifts. Okay, so yesterday was walking meditation, and Tuesday was the last Gita section, but to come back to Sankhya Yoga, this nature of truth that Lord Krishna is teaching, we took some time to explore this I and the relationship between that which is observed and the observer, right? So did we take some time perhaps and contemplate that on Tuesday afternoon? So is there anything that anyone would like to share from that observation or this thing? Was what was shared understandable? So do you draw some conclusion? Or is there some thought about it or some consideration about it, the situation, or what's being described? Any of these? It's an open question.
Can you say that again? I missed Tuesday. Classes.
It's okay then. Just for those that were here.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. We'll touch on it, but you won't be able to answer the question.
I understand.
Oh. It's an interesting situation, isn't it? It rings true, doesn't it? What's being shared. Yeah. So intellectually, we can grasp it. Yes? We can grasp what's being shared. Yes?
About 2 or 3 years ago, I heard Jason Silva is a philosopher that makes videos.
Right.
He talked about lenses of perception, and he correlated that to PTSD and how if you change those lenses of perception, things are Basically, it was talking about those lenses of perception and comparing to like the camera when you shift the lenses. So that was powerful for me, but it was still as if, I think that was a stage 2. It was like the eye
and the mind.
And yes, but then
We've done this before, Hara. So as we talk about it, it'll ring bells for you. You know what it is.
And it was for me, it was powerful as well to go to the other stage, from the higher self to mind.
Just to see that in fact you are observing the mind. Yeah. Oh. And so there's an intellectual grasping of that, yeah? But then when we come to the question, is this your lived reality? Then if you tell the truth, most of us would say no. So it brings us to an interesting place, which is, it makes sense, but it's not my experience. Right? And then, do we recognize, do we understand it's possible to know and not to know? So, what does that mean to you? The concept of knowing but not knowing.
To know intellectually, but to be open to more will be revealed.
To know intellectually, but not know in an integrated fashion.
Yes.
Not know in an integrated fashion. So we can give an example. So if I say, do you know that it's not beneficial to be angry with anyone for anything? You'll say, yes, right? So intellectually you get it. So then why in the world would you ever get angry if you know it?
Subconscious mind.
Yeah. Subconscious mind.
Yeah.
There's an old program that you wrote. I was asking one day because I relate to this mind as a computer, and the intellect as the programmer of the computer. So, and the light is the light. So someday, I was asking, well, why in the world is this so? And I realized, I think it was the light. It's like, because you programmed it this way. In a time when we didn't know. And so we find ourselves in a situation where we know, but we don't know. And from a practical standpoint, we don't know. From an intellectual standpoint, we're learning. And so we recognize with what happened with Arjuna in Chapter 1 and what happens with us when we become angry, for example, is that we're reacting, and we're reacting from the subconscious, from the program, and our knowledge, I say I know, isn't actually coming into play because we haven't integrated it. We don't really know. In the Peace Pilgram documentary, which I don't know if you've watched it, but I'll send you the link. You and Brooke Kalyani should watch together. It's a 1-hour documentary. It's so beautifully done. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, we'll do. Often we'll watch it on Tuesday evenings, or for during silent retreats. We'll typically, when we have our silent retreat weeks, which we haven't for some time here, we'll do. Maya Angelou. Do you know of Maya Angelou? Yeah, you do. She's a wise one and a poet, great poet. She left the body just a few years ago, not long ago. And she's very colorful, very beautiful, very wise. She says, Peace Pilgram got it. She knew it and she lived it. She says she knew it to the marrow of her bones. She knew it. Knew what? Knew the truth, what we're talking about. Knew who she was. So, completely fearless. Walked 27 years, offering in the highest teaching. It was never disturbed, not during that time. And then Maya Angelou will say, there's a Confucian saying, to know and not to know, to know and not to do is not to know. Mm-hmm. To know and not to do is not to know, which speaks to our situation. Mm-hmm. Right? Many people will say we're all one, but if we don't act in accordance with that, then we don't know. We don't really know. We don't really know. Because if we really knew, then we would react in accordance with the knowledge. So, and then she says, in her words, she says, if we really knew that what goes around comes around, if we really knew it, then no one could ever do an evil thing again. So this is our situation, and so Lord Krishna is teaching us, but it brings us to a question. Okay, I hear you, Lord, and what you're saying, it makes sense. But what?
How do I do it?
How do I do it? How do I come into alignment with this knowledge that you're sharing with me? How do I live it? How do I really know it? And so here we switch from Samkhya, which is the wisdom teaching, the highest teaching as to nature of self. So the self is eternal. There's never been a time when I have not been, nor you, nor all of these, and there will never be a time when any of these cease to be, when any of us cease to be. So that's Samkhya Yoga. That's a statement of Samkhya Yoga, saying you are eternal. And nothing can harm you here. Fire cannot burn. It can burn body, but it cannot touch you. The body is an object. It's something that's being seen, being experienced through. So, and it does resonate. We have to admit, it does resonate, right? And so we switch here from Samkhya Yoga because he can tell us this, and we can grok it. We can get it intellectually. But then the question is, can we really know it? And to know it, that's yoga. So here we move from Samkhya, or wisdom, to yoga, which means integrating the wisdom, integrating the knowledge. Yoga is union, means union. Union with the high self, union with the light. So it's the process, the science of really doing the work of coming into union to understand and to live what Lord Krishna is teaching in terms of nature of self. That's the switch that's made here. So from here on, in Bhagavad Gita, we're focused on yoga. We'll come back to the wisdom statements, but really that part of it's done. And it's not that many slokas. It's very direct, right? That's the nature of self. So, and we may be a doubter too. I mean, the doubting faculty is within us. Within this human psyche is this doubting faculty. And it's very beneficial in terms of helping us to learn, but also as we learn, then we have to allay that doubt. If we learn something, then we have to go through a process to allay that doubt or set aside that particular doubt. So doubt at this point is fine, but it's also helpful to provisionally accept what's being shared. It's helpful. Take it as a theory. In science, we work with theories. So we'll have, prior to a theory, an idea, a thought, and then we'll play around, we'll work around with that thought. We'll develop a theory of gravity, for example, and then we'll test it. And at some point, we understand that the theory is correct in all circumstances. So then we call it the law of gravity. And so too, this learning process about nature of self. We go through the same process. And we've been on it because we've had all these ideas about who I am and what I am. You know, I was a boy, and then I was a man, and and I was gay, and I was young, and I was old, and all this stuff. We tried all of these, and then we tested out, and we keep running into errors. Because everything here changes. So as long as we are identifying with the changing, then we always will run into errors. And the way we know the error is we're not satisfied, we're not happy. So here, when we say provisionally, it's helpful to just say, okay, I accept. I'm not completely sure, but I accept what Krishna is saying. Let's take it as a theory. Let's take it as before a theory is a thesis. So let's take it as a working theory and see if we can prove it. And if we were to do that, then we would live this yoga life and see if we could prove it or disprove it.
Oh.
Oh. Okay. So we come to 38, sloka 38, which is really the beginning of the teaching of yoga. And we need to do this. Okay. So now, and you'll see immediately that he switched. He'd given the 3 reasons why Arjuna needs to do his duty. The first is the nature of truth. And then he gave him 2 more reasons why. And even if you don't get that, you still need to do your duty. And he gave him 2 other good reasons why you have to do it. So now he moves to this. Seeing the same in pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat, in battle just for the sake of battle, then you will be sinless. So notice that he switches to talk about an approach to take towards the battle or towards what's being dealt with. He's not any longer telling him you need to do this and here's why. He's not speaking to who you are any longer. No, he's saying, so he's giving a practice now, or an approach. Seeing the same in pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat, in battle just for the sake of battle, then you will be sinless. And then we'll pick up the next 2. I want to share this commentary from Swami Venkatesananda, 39 and 40. And 40 is one of the big ones in terms of the yoga teachings. 40 is a famous shloka. 39 is like this. This which has been taught to thee is wisdom. Samkhya. Concerning wisdom, concerning Samkhya. Now listen to wisdom concerning yoga, endowed with which, O Arjuna, thou shalt cast off the bonds of action. Another way we could say is, we'll let Swamiji speak in the commentary. We'll come back to this concept. Thou shalt cast off the bonds of action. In this yoga, there is no loss of effort, nor is there any harm. Even a little of this knowledge protects one from great fear. One more time, and then we'll read his commentary. In this yoga, there is no loss of effort, nor is there any harm. Even a little of this knowledge protects one from great fear. And the knowledge of yoga is what he's talking about now, because he's switched. He's not talking about the self-knowledge now specifically. He's talking of yoga itself. So Swamiji adds this commentary. He says, there's a vital synthesis here. It is between action and knowledge. Philosophy carried in the brain is an intellectual burden. If it's just carried in the brain, it's a burden. Life or action not guided by philosophy, in the sense of wisdom, or an altruistic outlook, which implies an unceasing investigation into truth, such action is blind. As Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. We should learn to be good and do good. The welfare of society depends upon our good actions, so we should do good. Society does not bother even if our motive is bad and attitude commonplace, but our own good and our own salvation depend upon our inner motives and attitude. Therefore, we should do good. Knowledge and action must be integrated. Learning and life must blend. The word yoga introduced here has a variety of meanings, as we shall see in due course. Yoga means union or integration. Roughly, integration of man and the transcendent being is samkhya, or inner or inward knowledge, and integration of man and the immanent Godhead, the universe, is buddhi yoga. I'll read one more time. We can talk about for a second what he's sharing here. So he says yoga means union or integration. And then roughly he's giving a way to relate to this kind of integration in two ways. He says first, integration of man and the transcendent being. So self-knowledge is what he's speaking of. Looking inward and knowing yourself is Sankhya, or inward knowledge. So you come to know yourself by looking inward, right? Okay, but that's not all. That's not all. And then he speaks of the second integration. An integration of man and the immanent Godhead, the universe, is buddhi yoga. So, integration, so the man who knows himself, integrating outwardly, becoming love. A movement of love. Outwardly, towards the Godhead, which this universe is.
Devotion. Yes.
Service.
Yes.
Devotion. This outer is not separate from us. And it's a funny idea, you know. I remember from the movie, which we truly will watch one of these days, Padre Pio. And this quote, and I've heard this quote elsewhere. He says, he's speaking of knowing God, and he said, either God is not seen anywhere or God is seen everywhere. It's one, our situation is it's one or the other. Either we don't see God anywhere or we see God everywhere. Huh? And the idea, of course, that we deal with about God is that God is omnipresent, so He is everywhere. Omnipotent, all-powerful. So if these two are true, then I must be in God. And his last words, Padre Pio, his last words as he's wistfully looking out, just shortly before he leaves the body, he says, the great mystery. God is inside and God is outside. The great mystery. Swami Ramaswarup, this gives me an opportunity to share one of his favorite stories. It's a very short one. He speaks of a monk sitting in a forest. And if you came across him, you'd think he was a crazy fellow because he's just sitting there opening his eyes and closing his eyes. He's not doing anything. But he sits, and inwardly he'll say to himself, with his eyes closed, he'll say, if God is outside, why do you have your eyes closed? And he'll open his eyes and look out. And then after a while, he'll say, if God is inside, why do you have your eyes open? And he'll close his eyes.
Yes.
So this is integration. This is integration. Integration is not just integrating inside. It's both. It's both of these movements. So we come inside in order to integrate out. And then there's no in and out. Then there's no in or out. Oh. So when we take this path of yoga, we are on the right road to salvation. Every step takes us nearer the goal, and thus there is no loss of effort at all here. So we're accustomed to acting in ways where, look at anything we do for pleasure, there's always a price to pay. Right? Look at anything we get in the world, it was always taken from somewhere. Anything you do, someone can be angry about it. And we can be angry too, and what does that serve? Anything you do, someone will judge you about it. So we get accustomed to whatever we do here in this world, we lose something for doing it. We gain something, we lose something. So life can become then a game of arbitrage. Trying to get what's more than what I'm going to lose in order to have something real out of it, which is a losing game. And we learn this at some point. But here, what Krishna is saying, actually, even a little of this, there's no loss. A little of this practice of yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, etc., there's nothing lost. It's all plus. It's only gain. No loss. So he's describing something that's completely separate from the worldly activities in this way.
He's saying just a little bit of this yoga can relieve from great fear.
Yeah, that's it.
Which I've witnessed. Students come just for 1 or 2 classes sometimes, and they get like tremendous benefits just from that. But it's just like a little bit.
That's it. So every step takes us nearer the goal, and thus there is no loss of effort at all here. In fact, we'll get in the Geeta where later on Arjuna asks the question, what if I don't reach the goal in this birth? And Lord Krishna says, no worries, then I will place you in the appropriate womb so that you can continue. I'll put you in the right place so that you can continue. So he's actually saying that the steps, no loss. No loss. That you're always moving closer in this way. And sometimes it won't seem like it. But we have to take the steps, We have to actually do it. So we have to be regular in all of this. So if we don't do it, if we just say, then it doesn't do us any good. And that can actually set us back. Because then we end up in an inner conflict, not being true to ourselves even. So every step takes us nearer the goal, and thus there's no loss of effort at all here. The knowledge and confidence that we are on the right path itself frees us from all fear. The very movement of investigation saves us from sorrow and hence fear. Fear arises only in the darkness known as ignorance. So, knowing where we're going, knowing the direction, having an understanding that we're almost to the last day of the program today?
Correct.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Hari. Jesus says, this is Gospel of Thomas, this is the Gnostic Bible stuff. Jesus says, seek and ye shall find. Ask and it shall be answered. Knock and the door shall be opened. At first you will be disturbed. And then you will be amazed. And then you shall find yourself ruling over all. That part didn't make the normal part. That didn't make the 3 canonical scriptures. But it's there, not Hamadi. I'm pretty sure it's something he would have said. Oh. Okay, any comments or questions about this morning? So we're entering into yoga, And this sloka 40, it's a big one. Look and see if it's practical. Look and see if it's practical. Check it out. Okay. And close from personality, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivarnam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyaman Mritata Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivarnam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyaman Mritata Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivarnam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyaman Mritata Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Ma Kashit Dukkha Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And universal prayer, next page. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Ambalo Sakri Shivananda Maharaj ki Jai. Ambalo Sakri Saraswati Maharani ki Jai. Okay, let's stand for our tea.